Hello, Jennifer. How are you doing?
Hi, Lalita. Very well, thank you.
Good. So today, as part of the Empowering Women Through Career Transitions and as part of my Courageous Conversations, I'm in conversation with Jennifer Woolford. Jennifer started her career with Mars as a brand manager and moved up to marketing director and global brands director of several brands within Mars. And after 14 years, started her own company as an independent consultant in order to help companies build marketing and brand strategies. She then recently formed Neon Leaders, and she runs Neon Leaders, which is essentially a collective of senior marketing leaders with in-house expertise, enabling companies to fill capacity and capability gaps. Jennifer, thank you so much for giving your time to have this conversation on your transitions journey with me.
Thank you for having me.
So my first question to you is, I know I broadly said it, but I have probably, narrowed it down to just a few words. What key career transitions have you gone through to get you to the success you've achieved, or success as defined by you, not as defined by anyone else?
Mm-hmm. So I think, as you outlined, two key transitions. So outside of the corporate world. So obviously there were many prior to that within corporate world as well. But when I left Mars to start work as an independent consultant, that was definitely my first major transition. And then the second one was at the point that I decided to found and build a business, very much driven by the insights I'd had working in corporate life and working independently, and a real sense of purpose that I developed through that I wanted to bring to the fore in what I was doing.
And how have you felt about your transitions up until now?
Well, I think I'm the type of person that, I'm very considered as I go into things. As a marketeer, I will always look to understand the insights and the opportunity and the size of the prize I think available before I go after it and I do it. But I think what I've always underestimated is the personal impact on me, and how I would find that experience. And having, as I always say, kind of grown up within one corporate business through a graduate trainee scheme and then leading on to a sort of a succession of different roles, there's a lot of people looking out for you, nurturing you, mentoring you, and structure that is put in place around that. And when you step out of that to work on your own, either as an independent or if you stepped into a small business or then as an entrepreneur, and that structure is taken away, finding your own way and putting those own support structures in place for yourself is a huge part of those types of transitions, which I think I really underestimated, but have in time learned so much through doing, and something that I look to try and help other people with as they go through those kinds of transitions themselves as well.
Okay, wonderful. So what were some of the, I know you touched upon in your response just now, but what were some of the key challenges that you've gone through the two major transitions that you've spoken about, or even in the corporate world, though you were with one company and yes, there's a set structure, etc. On reflection, what were some of the key challenges, if any, there on some of the transitions you made there from maybe being an individual contributor and then managing teams, etc.?
Well, actually, I think the one I'd really like to talk about is the transition from corporate life to working independently.
Sure.
Because I think that's definitely where I experienced the greatest challenge. And two key things around that. I think one was very much for me around the sense of belonging. So when you work as part of a corporate and a fantastic team that I worked, that I led and also that I was part of within that business, it gives you a huge sense of inclusion and belonging and part of something that's bigger than just yourself. And I think finding that belonging when you step out either independently and then latterly as an entrepreneur was a real challenge. And the second one was around professional identity. So within corporate life, we are marked by our job titles to many extents, and also by the brand and the name of the company who we work for. And that attracts a lot of interest and attention in what you do. It automatically denotes your level of seniority and accomplishment very quickly for people. Whether they've met you before or not, immediately your job title will say something about who you are and where you've come from. And when you lose that title and that name behind you and you start something on your own and you are existing, and I've always struggled with what to call myself, because, when you work as an independent consultant, a consultant can be someone who's just graduated from university and started in one of the big 5 consultancy firms.
Yes.
It can be somebody following a 40-year career who's now decided to do some executive consultancy work, and many, many different variants of that in the middle. And therefore I found it really hard to define who I was once I had the job title, removed, and I stepped away from it.
And I relate to that completely. I have always been, with my 20 years career in banking, I was never much for titles. And yet, when I got out of banking and, there was a 6-month period before which I established my company, got myself the certification of, coach, facilitator, etc. There were moments when I met people and everyone says, hi, I'm working for so-and-so company, I'm in sales, I'm an investment banker, I'm so-and-so. And then when it came to me and I was like, how do I introduce myself?
Yeah.
Ex-investment banker, okay, what do you do now? Oh, I'm trying to kind of figure it out. It was a struggle, and it almost felt like, it must have been probably 2 seconds, but it felt like 2 minutes to me, to come up with an answer and not sound yucky about it. I mean, where you value yourself, and people can tell by the way you answer, right? So I completely relate to that. So what for you was a driver behind the transitions from the corporate world to being an independent entrepreneur, independent consultant?
So I would say, both the 2 transitions, one to working independently and then on to founding the business, were really driven by passions and purpose, I guess, but 2 different ones. So the first one, when I decided to work independently, was driven by a desire to work with greater flexibility around my young family. And, I worked for Mars, which is a family-owned business, exceptionally supportive in terms of flexible working, but at a senior level, and, the demands that, I probably placed upon myself to really excel in the work and the job that I was doing, I found didn't offer me enough flexibility in terms of how present I wanted to be at that point in time in my children's lives. And yet, having always worked 14 years in the same business, I didn't know what to do differently. So independent working for me was a real opportunity to develop my breadth as well, and to experience different companies, different industries, build my networks in a way that could also help me reconnect with what it was from a career perspective that point in time I'd step back into corporate life, where I wanted to work and where I wanted to be. It also coincided with, moving from Europe to Asia, and as part of that, you know, getting out there and building those networks and working independently really enabled me to do that. The second time, when it was setting up the business of Neon Leaders, that was driven by my passion to, I guess, create a new label for what it means of people who want to work in an independent way outside of corporate life for a period of time. And you know, we've talked already about how hard it is to have that identity and have that sense of belonging. And I felt there was a real opportunity to create a business through which people could come together, senior leaders, and work in a collective way with a real value to corporates of, you know, flexible access. And flexibility is important now more than ever as people are struggling with budgets and hiring freezes and so on. That means that corporates could work in a very flexible way with really great talent, and at the same time be helping that diverse group of talent to be delivering and developing and advancing in their careers. So that was my passion and my purpose that led to setting up Neon Leaders.
Wonderful. And what, you know, and especially women, many women are blamed for this, or we ourselves blame many a times for this, that we tend to take it all on our shoulder, right? We may not necessarily look for resources and look for help when required. So what resources, internal to you, that is your own internal resources, as well as external, acted as enablers through the two key transitions that you have mentioned?
So so I'd say there's been three different things that I've drawn upon, and on reflecting, probably another one that I think I should have lent upon more, and will hope to do so going forward. But the first one, and I talked about, that's this sense of belonging. And I had, you know, I'd stepped out of my corporate role. I'd also moved continents, and therefore looking for, you know, networks that I could belong to and be a part of. And the Women's Foundation in Hong Kong was a fantastic resource for me as part of that. Their mentoring program, which pairs, you know, 50 mentors with 50 proteges, which I joined as a mentor, and enabling, you know, suddenly this amazing network of 99 other women that I could call upon and build relationships with. And I've developed some real friendships from that as well, which has been fantastic. So I think, you know, networks where you can find that sense of belonging was really important. The second thing was books and podcasts. I'm an enormous fan of podcasts. I struggle to fit exercise into my day with 3 small children and a company. And yeah, if I go for a hike and I've got a podcast in my ear, then I feel like I'm getting exercise, and I'm also stimulating and learning as I go as well. And what I found brilliant in those is finding resources that reinforce what the choices I've made. So when you find and you're listening to people talking and you're going, yes, like you get what I'm talking about and where I'm coming from, that's enormously supportive, even though it's a voice in your ear and someone you've never even necessarily met. So, and at the same time, they also, you know, kind of broaden the horizons and always lead to other resources and things to access. So books and podcasts have been hugely valuable. And then the third thing was that I actually engaged with a coach as I was setting up Neon Leaders, you know, and having worked in corporate life and had benefit through that to access coaches over time, I fully understood and realized the value of what working with a great coach can do, to give you those times to reflect and think about, you know, what the next couple of months ahead holds. And I found going into sort of setting up my own business that was going to be really important for me to have that kind of resource to hand. And I worked with a brilliant coach who helped me with that. And also I think helped me kind of think about how to self-coach myself as well. You know, now I'm kind of bootstrapping a business. It's a luxury to have, but I think she's helped me think about the types, when I go into moments of self-doubt in particular, the types of questions that I should be asking myself to help pull me out of that as well, and fire me up for the next stage.
That's brilliant. And what about your own internal resources? Because I don't think anyone can undertake a transition without having their own internal resources.
What do you mean by internal resources?
Your own, it could be your resilience, it could be your grit, it could be your willpower, it could be, or any of that.
Okay, bloody mindedness, probably.
Okay.
I'm one of those people that I think very strategically. That's what I've been trained to do. But once, through that strategic thought process, then I know where I want to go. Then I become very focused on that goal and that delivery. And that, I think, has really helped serve me very well. Resilience, yes, absolutely, but something I'd say probably I'm very much still developing. It's still hard when you have conversations with people, who don't necessarily align with your way of thinking, and you get rejection, and that requires a large amount of resilience. And it's something I'm learning as I'm going, but I wouldn't say I can easily take it on the chin just yet.
Excellent. Is there anything else you would like to add on as a final message before we wrap this up?
Well, the only thing I realized I didn't finish saying was the probably the fourth area of resources, which I think I've neglected, yes. Has been around mentors and sponsors. And, I think sometimes we can become very focused on sort of taking things on by ourselves. And increasingly I'm looking at, how I build out people who have supported me in the past, people who share the same kind of interest and belief that I do around what the business is, the principles behind the business, and better working with and having the benefit of the wisdom of those people as well as I work. So I think through transitions, mentors and sponsors are incredibly important. But as you step out of corporate life and into working independently, it's a job in itself to kind of transition those people with you, because they exist in a different world. So I think that's the one thing I'd add for other people that I would strongly advise thinking about.
Thank you. So it's been from Jennifer as a gist of what she said. Don't get scared about transitions. I think it's something which is undervalued, and we probably underestimate it too. And yet transitions is possible if you're passionate about it, you have a purpose, and find your enablers and mentors and coaches in a tribe that you can create. Thank you very much, Jennifer.
Thanks, Lalita.